Hello all and welcome to another Caffeinated Entertainment video. It's Art here with the book review for Seven Blades in Black by Sam Sykes, The Great Empires Book 1. Also, the October 2019 book club book pick for the Sword and Laser Book Club. Let me dive into it because I have a lot of interesting things to say about this high fantasy meets Assassin's Creed type novel. The prose was very well done. The pacing, however, going back and forth in time, left me confused at points to where I had to catch up with the book at points and listen for markers to see where we were. I did listen to it mostly in audiobook form, so maybe that was the point of it. I did start reading it in a library book form, so maybe that was part of my confusion, but it was very hard to keep track of. That being said, when the story wasn't slow, because in another negative is that it was very slow in parts. It was very hard to keep up with, and it was very slow in parts. It had good prose, and when the action was on point, it was on point. I loved the main character, Sal, and I loved the fact that her weapon had a personality as well. And I loved that she operated mostly in the shadows, but when she came out, her name and her presence carried weight. So those things I very much loved. I enjoyed all those things in the book. I loved that the world felt like it was a living, breathing, vibrant world. Also, if you can hear the rain on the roof, there's nothing I can do because it is cold, dank, and rainy outside today in my area. That is one reason why most of the outside videos will stop for the time being, because the weather is turning nasty. Also because I'm going to get a lavalier mic and do things that way too. But back to the book. It was definitely a long the tooth book. I think it was almost too long for its own good. It was 22 hours in audiobook form, 667 pages in physical form, at least the library copy was. It was a very, but then again, it had to be slow because it was building the world of what will be a series. Because like I said, it's The Great Empires Book 1. And with it being Book 1, you have to give it a little bit of leeway. But the confusion is the problem of the author. It's not the problem of the pacing or the building of the world. So, and I liked how our main character was constantly put around tension and put in danger. That kept the action parts flowing, and and that's really what made the non-action parts feel super duper slow, was because they were set around these huge action pieces that the pace kept going, that I felt even the dialogue should have had a better pace to it. The dialogue was kind of a casual conversation pace and not a speedy, let's move on to the next action pace. Because I know that's something that even action films do. They do heavy action piece, followed by soft letdown, followed by heavy action piece, and soft letdown. And I could tell that Sam Sykes was trying to get to that pace and trying to maintain that pace and was trying to mimic that pace. But in my opinion, Sam Sykes fell short because the slow paces had me dying for the action to pick back up. That's just a fact, and that's just the way things were. So, and oddly enough, because I kept going with the book because it was the Sword and Laser Book Club book pick of the month, I started to want more, and the book definitely ends on a cliffhangery, I want more type of ending. Whereas if you would have asked me in the first third to 2/3 of the book if I would have kept on reading the series, my answer probably would have been no. My answer would probably be yes now. But here is where that changes, because here is the caveat for that, I should say. The caveat for that is that I would Sam Sykes would only get to book 2 because book 2 would have to impress me and fix the flaws of book 1 before I continued on to book 3, because book 2 does not get the same leeway with me that book 1 does. Book 1 is a world-building world. It can be a little bit slower. It still has to be entertaining, because what if there isn't a book 2? What if it didn't sell well enough for there to be a book 2? You know, we have a lot of fantasy series out there to hold our attention that are way better. The Lord of the Rings comes to mind. Game of Thrones comes to mind. Even Harry Potter comes to mind. Even The Wheel of Time and the Name of the Wind series, the Killer Chronicles come to mind. Like, there's plenty of fantasy out there that can draw your attention. So that's where Sam Sykes is probably only going to get book 2, and I can't wait to dive into book 2 to see if it's any good or not. Hopefully it's already out there. I did find out that Monday's reviewed book, its second book, is coming out in the middle of November, so there's a little hint for the November MMR. Actually, MRR. Monthly Reading Roadmap, yeah. MMRM, yeah. Good. But as I struggle with what score to give it on GoodReads, I can tell you that on my scale, the scale where I first balance the scale of opinion and the scale of my own judgment, I can say it's a read it. I liked it. I will definitely continue on with the series. I don't know if I'll own them. There were some problems with the audiobook. It did have some skipping issues, but that's technical issues on Audible's format, and I'm glad that Audible allows for returns, because I will be returning the audiobook because of that. That's part of the reason why I kept flipping back and forth between the physical and the audio, was because when the audio would have its issue, I would go to physical. But with that said, on the GoodReads star scale, it's a 3 out of 5 for me, because it's, even though that seems like an average score and it's a slightly above average book, the two things that really draw it back for me are the slow pacing and the confusion of the time frames. Because as an author, you should never confuse your reader to where your reader's saying, what's going on now? Like, you should never, ever, ever do that. It should never be a thing. And in this book, all too often, at least in the first 2/3 of the book, it is a thing. It happens a little bit in the last third of the book as well. So it actually appears and plagues the book throughout the book. I'm not saying it's not a bad book. It's great high fantasy. But Sam Sykes needs to fix the problems with book 1 before, in book 2, before I move on with the series anymore. But I can't wait to get to book 2 to see if those problems are fixed. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any good high fantasy, or if you've read Seven Blades in Black. Let me know what you thought about it. Spoiler free, of course, because we like to keep things spoiler-free on this channel. Let me know what high fantasy, potentially that I haven't read, that you would recommend. Although I have to warn you, I'm pretty well versed in the genre. So, without further ado, you know I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Central, 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more. Please ding the notification bell to be notified when I upload a video. If YouTube is working that day, that is totally up to YouTube, as you all well know. But without further ado, happy reading, everybody. I'm going to go back to reading in this cold, rainy, dark and drainy day, and go back to reading more because I like to cuddle underneath my blanket and read. So until then, happy reading, everybody. I'll see you again soon, and peace.